Welcome to the Man in the Middle. I am your host, Bill West. Today we're going to be looking at another one of my favorite fantasy worlds. I was going to say science fiction fantasy, but I think lately I've just been doing fantasy. We'll get into science fiction later. But today we're going to The Land, made famous, the novels by Stephen L. Donaldson, in the series, uh, 10-book series of Thomas Covenant, broken into two trilogies and a quadrilogy. First book is Lord Fowl's Bane, book one of the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. Uh, Thomas Covenant is a best-selling writer who ends up getting leprosy. And through that he loses his faith in his career, his wife and child, because his wife doesn't want her son to be around a leper, because uh, according to the book, I don't know if the science is real. Children are more uh, have a greater risk of picking up leprosy than elder people, so she leaves him. The town he lives in, they start, he becomes a pariah. The whole leper, outcast, unclean, mantra pretty much comes into play. And in fact, the town starts having his groceries delivered without him asking, and they start paying his bills. They don't want him in town, so they just make it easy for him to be forgotten. And that is where this series picks up. He called himself Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever because he dared not believe in the strange alternative world which he suddenly found himself. Yet the land tempted him. He had been sick. Now he seemed to be better than ever. Through no fault of his own, he had been outcast, unclean, a pariah. Now he was regarded as the reincarnation of the land's greatest hero, Barak Halfhand. Armed with the mystic power of white gold, the power that alone could protect the lords of the land from the ancient evil of the despiser, Lord Fowl. Except that Covenant had no idea how to use that power. This begins one of the most remarkable epic fantasies ever written. Thomas Covenant has a white gold wedding ring, and he also is, he's missing two fingers, so half hand. He wears the ring on, I believe, his middle finger. And in this land, in this maybe imaginary land, maybe not, he doesn't believe in it. He thinks it's all a fantasy concocted because he got hit in the head or he's dying. He doesn't want to believe in this. The white gold is so precious, or not, maybe not even precious. It doesn't exist in the land, but the ring is a talisman of power, but he doesn't know how to use it. Everybody keeps looking at him, help me, save me, save me, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he comes to the land, and he's heralded as, like it says, the reincarnation of Barak Halfhand, which he doesn't know who that is. He's not even sure that he believes in everything. That's why the Lords of Revelstone called him the Unbeliever. Book 2 is The Ill Earth War. After scant days in his real world, Thomas Covenant finds himself again summoned to the land. There, 40 bitter years have passed, while Lord Fowl, mortal enemy of the land, moves to fulfill his prophecy of doom. The Council of Lords find their spells useless, now that Fowl the Despiser holds the Ill Earth Stone, ancient source of evil power. At last, the High Lord Elena turns in desperation to Covenant and the legendary white gold magic of his ring. I'm trying to figure out what I can and cannot say. What spoilers? Maybe I shouldn't give any spoilers. I mean, the series is ancient. Came out when I was in high school, so 40 years ago. If you haven't read it yet, then I'm not going to spoil it. Just say that there are some interesting twists. 7 days on Earth is 40 years in the land. So the whole generation has passed since the event of the first book. Whole generation has come to power. New lords who have had to deal with Lord Fowl in his prophecy. Finally, last but not least in this trilogy, the power that preserves. Twice before, Thomas Covenant had been summoned to the strange other world where magic worked. Twice he had been forced to join with the Lords Revelstone in their war against Lord Fowl, ancient enemy of the land. Now he was back. To a land ravaged by the armies of Lord Fowl, the lords were besieged and helpless. No place was safe, and Fowl's victory seemed certain. Only Covenant could prevent. Desperately and without hope, he set to confront the might of the enemy. Along with him traveled a giant, a blood guard, and a mad woman he had wronged, and in Fowl's crash, Lord Fowl grew in power with each new defeat of the land. And this is the final book in this trilogy. Of course, good overcomes evil. Thomas returns to Earth where he could have stayed and been healed, but no, he just doesn't believe in it. So he returns to Earth. There's a sequence in the first book which I've totally neglected to talk about till now. This old beggar almost gets hit by a car. Thomas Covenant saves him, and the beggar looks at him, and in a voice totally unbecoming of the shell, he says that if he is true to his calling, he will survive. And Thomas Covenant doesn't know what he's talking about, but that's through the whole trilogy. That's he's told to be true to himself, be true to the land, be true to his calling, and he finally understands it at the end of this last book, and defeats Lord Fowl and goes home. Still the unbeliever. My dog down here. He's wondering why I'm talking to you and not him. Pardon me. Oh, water. Recently, I've been going back through this, and I'm halfway through The Wounded Land, which is the first book in the second trilogy. The second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. 4,000 years have passed since Covenant first freed the land from the devastating grip of Lord Fowl and his minions. The monstrous force of evil has regained its power, once again warping the very fabric and balance of the land. Armed with stunning white gold wild magic, Covenant must not only battle terrifying external forces, but his own capacity for despair and devastation. His quest to save the land from ultimate ruin is as exciting and heroic as ever. 4,000 years has passed. Mm-hmm. For him, what do they say? 7 years, something. Uh, I don't remember exactly, but he meets a doctor called Lyndon Avery, and when he is called to the land, she is pulled with him. And the powers that he had in the beginning of the first book, she now gets. She can see. She has this thing called health sense, and she can see how good the land is and how bad it is. And to her, it's a wasteland. It's awful. Where 4,000 years ago it was a blooming paradise. It's now a desert, and there's hardly anything living. And there's a thing called the sunbane, and the sun rises in cycle. Some days it's desert. Some days it's flooding. Some day, as a bunch of rain comes down. Some days it's a feast of everything. All the grasses blossom, and it's just for a day. And the only way to get the sunbane to do what you want it to do is sacrifice some blood to it. And so across the land, patrols go out and bring people in to what used to be Revelstone, and they sacrifice these people, and these people cause power to shoot to the sun, and it, you know, they do this to try to help them out, but this is Lord Val again, perverting everything that Covenant holds dear. I always thought that the land was the entirety of that world, but then we came to the one tree, where you find out that it's the land, it's one continent, and there are different places on this world. A desert. To the one tree we go to a desert, and we find these sand gorgons, which are really cool, and different races, the Elohim, the sand gorgons, the tribes that live in the great desert. I guess this is the one tree. Thomas Covenant, accompanied by Lyndon Avery, begins his search for the one tree aboard the giant ship Starfarer's Gem. Armed with the knowledge given to him in Andalan by his trusted friend, the forestal Hal Troy, Covenant was determined to succeed. He was the last hope for the salvation of the land. Only he had the power to forge a new staff of law and return to the land to stop the encroaching desperation of the Sunbane and the bloody sacrificial rites of the Clave. But fate decreed his journey was to be long, arduous, and fraught with dangers. Covenant and his companions are assailed by powerful forces whose sole purpose is to ensure the failure of this quest. Hal Troy was he showed up in the third book of the first Chronicles. He was a blind officer in U.S. Air Force, I believe, one of the armed forces. He was blind, and his building was on fire, and supposedly, in our world he died, but he went to the land, and he survived, and the land 4,000 years ago, this is, before this new series, land healed he didn't get his eyes back, but he received a sight of sorts, and he became a forestal, which is the person in charge of there were at the time the forestals. There was one forestal for each great forest, and Hal Troy is the last forestal of the last forest in the land called Andalan. Hello. And he tells Covenant, this is where you have to go, this is what you have to do. And of course, while he's there, while there's help, there's also hindrance, and so the bad guys are trying to stop him. The last book in this trilogy is White Gold Wielder. You know, Thomas Covenant is the White Gold Wielder. I also have these in hardbound back there somewhere. Thomas Covenant realized that despite their awful failure on the Isle of One Tree, there was no alternative but to return to the land and fight. Morum and Ordnum, in the end, you must return to the land. After a long and arduous journey overland, the company reaches Revelstone. Following a fiery showdown with Gibb and Raver, Covenant discovers he can come to terms and control his awesome power. As he raises himself for the final showdown with Lord Fowl the Despiser, Thomas Covenant knows he has the answer at last. Once again, good guy overcomes bad guy, and evil is defeated. For another cycle. Lyndon and Covenant return to the land, or Lyndon returns to Earth. Covenant stays with the land. I'm not going to say why or how. If you haven't read the books, I don't want to spoil it. Like I said, these are 30, 40 years old. But, I don't want to give it away. Now, because I'm not quite sure where everything is, some of these are still packed up. Some of these haven't been unpacked for 5 years. There is a quadrilogy that is supposed to be the last Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. I'm going to look them up real quick so we can go over them. There we are. Yeah, so I'm on the wiki. Oh, everybody shines a. That's better, I think. So, Lord's Foul Bane came out in 77. Earth War in 78. Power That Preserves in 79. I didn't realize there was only a year between Power That Preserves and The Wounded Land. Wounded Land was in 80, One Tree was in 82, White Gold Wielder was in 83. That year, I had I was so much on a Thomas Covenant kick that anybody who I talked to, I friends of mine who wanted stuff to read, I would make them read this. That year when Wounded Land came out, I received a hardbound copy of it. It's back there. For my birthday, and then my friends gave me a sword to go with it. I had that sword for the longest time. It was a plastic sword, sheath sword, but I thought it was the greatest thing, and I held on to that for a very long time. I don't know what happened to it, but if you guys are out there watching this, I appreciate you all. Thanks. Okay, so we go 21 years between White Gold Wielder and Runes of the Earth, the last Chronicles. Lyndon Avery is now in charge of the clinic for the mentally ill and is responsible, among other things, for caring for Joan Covenant Rogers, son of Thomas son of Thomas and Joan, comes to visit for the first time in many years and seeks to take Joan out of care, claiming he wants to assume responsibility for the task himself. Roger also demands from Lyndon his late father's white gold wedding ring, which she refused to relinquish. Lyndon remains suspicious of his intentions, but she is not able to prevent this forceful removal of Joan at gunpoint, and his abduction of Lyndon's adopted son, Jeremiah. Casualties mount as Joan is taken, and while attempting to intervene, Lyndon, Joan, Roger, and Jeremiah are transported to the land where they must adjust to its new demands. That was Rooms of the Earth. Next one is Final Revenant. Came out in 2007. Okay. These ones were a little after each other. Took a couple of years. Rooms of the Earth was 2004. Fatal Revenant is 2007. Against All Things Ending was 2010. And The Last Dark is 2013. Fatal Revenant. Lyndon Avery is determined to save her adopted son, from Jeremiah, from the hands of the despiser. However, before she begins her search, it appears that Jeremiah and Thomas Covenant have ridden into Revelstone, despite the voice of Thomas Covenant previously telling Lyndon to find me. The behavior and demeanor of her two loved ones arouse suspicion and doubt in Lyndon. So, at the end of the last trilogy, Covenant stayed in the land, and there's a time when you're transported to the land where other people, residents of the land, or the Creator, or Lord Fowl, can talk to you, and during this time, Covenant tells Lyndon to find him, and so she begins her search for him. Against All Things Ending in 2010. After the resurrection of Thomas Covenant, his mind is fractured and often comes lost among his vast memories of the lands past acquired from existence as the Time Warden. Spoilers. Lyndon Avery resolves to find Jeremiah before confronting the newly awakened worm of the world's end, when the hero appears and claims that he can take her to her son. It is the hero's purpose to confront the worm, for which he requires the Staff of Law and the white gold ring. He demands to borrow them to use, in return for which he offers to retrieve Jeremiah. The Ardent, a representative of the Insequent, arrives to ensure that the hero does not betray Lyndon Avery. Thomas Covenant, who must struggle with his memories, takes the Krill from his place in Andaline. However, his former wife, Joan, is able to attack Covenant with wild magic through the Krill. Without the Krill's protection, and the Scourge and the Scangordans, now controlled by the Raver, Sheol, will lay waste Andaline and the surrounding Salva Gildenborn. Ultimately, with assurances from the Ardent and through him, the entire race of the Insequent, that the hero will not deal falsely, Lyndon agrees to the bargain and sunders the staff and white ring. The Ardent is charged by his kindred to both constrain and assist the hero, which means that by the innate law of the Insequent, his life is forfeit to failure as well. I guess I can say this now since, I already read that. At the end of White Gold Wielders, Thomas Covenant becomes part of the magic of white gold. He ascends and becomes, something else, and supposedly watches over the land and the Arch of Time, but doesn't seem like he does a good job. So he gets resurrected and resurrected. And goes on these adventures with Lyndon Avery. The Last Dark came out in 2013, 10 years ago. On the promontory, that's pretty much the whole novel. Let's see if I can. Wow, this is really long. I don't have the voice for it, and it pretty much gives the whole book away. Uh, the cycle ends again. This time, uh, Thomas Covenant and his family survive, although they are taken away by the Insequent, letting the land evolve along its own on its own. Uh, I haven't reread this yet. I'm going to, like I said, I'm rereading the whole series. But I would, when I do, maybe I'll, come back to it. Uh, Stephen L. Donaldson, I don't want to say he's one of my favorite authors because I'm not sure I have. Well, Roger's Lassie. Okay, pin me down. I have. I don't have many favorite authors. I have favorite works. Dune by Frank Herbert. I don't care much for any of the other stuff, but I love the Dune series. Uh, Stephen L. Donaldson, his Thomas Covenant works. Although I have everything he's written, almost everything. I think he did a series of police or uh, yeah, noir novels, which I haven't read, but uh, Mordance Need, uh, the Gap series, Thomas Covenant books, his new series. I can't remember the name of the series. I've got all three books. I've just finished the first one. What else? Who else? Oh, I said Dune. Larry Niven. I've overall his Ring World, but I do like a lot of his other stuff. Let's take a look. Oops. Oh, David Eddings. I do like all. No, I can't say all of his stuff because the last four books he wrote were pretty bad. I didn't care for them. But the the Elenium, the Belgariad, the Sparhawk novels, all great books. You're not going to go wrong by reading those. Oh, one of these days we're going to go over Darkover. I know about what happened with Marianne Zimmer Bradley, her father and her daughter. I didn't hear about that until after her death. I really don't want to go over that. I fell in love with Darkover, and I maybe we will go over it, but I don't. It's not something that I feel to remain. I love the series. Everything I bought since I found out about it, I bought it second person, so their estate doesn't get anything. So, but Darkover I absolutely love. Asimov's Foundation. Oh, Dragon Riders of Pern. I just bought 2 more books in that series. I'm restocking. There was a time, I'm going on a small tangent here. There was a time when my bookshelf pretty much read, Del Rey, all, all across my bookshelf. It used to be all Del Rey. That was before I divorced and I had to, paying bills off of selling off my old book collection. Now I'm restocking, and while I might have, I don't know if I have much Anne McCaffrey in hardbound anymore, but I'm recollecting, and while I have more publications other than Del Rey, Ace, Rock, Bane. Bane is a big one now. I have a lot of Bane. That's the new Del Rey for me. Tor, like I said, did I say Daw? Jove, Orbit, Ace, but Eon. I'm going back to that. But I don't even know where I started, how I got here. I hope you enjoyed this Tromp Through the Land. I'm looking forward to going through this series again, and I'm looking forward to sharing my visit with you. Maybe when I finish the series, I'll do another video about it. But this was a supposedly quick and dirty 30-minute video on 10 books. All right. My name is Bill West. I am the man in the middle. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I could always use your help trying to get 300 by the end of the year. You guys take care. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.